Hello everyone, I'm Fozzie or Cam and I'm here as always with my co-host Will. How you doing today, Will?
Doing great, Cam. How about you?
I'm doing great, and we're also here with Mike. How you doing today, Mike?
Doing well. Just happy to be invited on the show once again. Thanks to you and to Will, Cam.
Oh yeah, we like having you on. And I mean, you also have so many fans that you need to please on the show. So,
I am coming here from my home theater. So, yes, you can see we have several people we live here in California in the Napa area. So, a lot of people from our neighborhood wanted to be able to participate live in our studio audience. And so, yes, there are some fans that we have.
perfect. So today we all actually have seen Creed 3. So we're going to mainly focus on that today. We're going to start, as always, when we do a big movie review episode. We're going to start off with an overall review, going over our general analysis of the movie, giving our score out of 10, and then we're going to talk about Michael B. Jordan behind the camera. Will is actually going to share his ranking of all the Rocky and Creed movies combined, which I'm actually very excited to hear how Creed 3 places. Um, we also are going to go over Jonathan Majors being such an epic villain because, I mean, how can we not touch on that? He's just so electric when you see Jonathan Majors on the screen. It's crazy. And finally, we're going to talk about something I really want to touch on this movie, Missing Rocky. So, yeah, let's get started. So, my overall review of this movie was very positive. I didn't have many problems with it at all. My main problem, which I said on the short I made about it, was that it was missing Sylvester Stallone as Rocky. There were just moments in the movie that I felt I've heard other people say this, and I completely agree. It felt weird that Rocky wasn't there. There were moments in the movie that Rocky should have been there to help Adonis through what he was going through, you know? And it just felt weird that he wasn't there. Uh, but overall, my experience with this movie was very positive. I loved Tessa Thompson's character in this movie. She had a lot to do. I love Adonis's daughter. Very funny. She had some very good scenes. And it's really cool to see how he adapts with her having sign language. I loved the whole story arc with his mother. It was awesome. And like I always say, death just makes movies more dramatic and more powerful. So that I really enjoyed. Um, I really enjoyed her in the movie. Obviously, Jonathan Majors was fantastic. And overall, yeah, this movie gets an 8 out of 10 for me. Just missing that little bit of Rocky. But Will, do you want to talk now? What was your general consensus on Creed 3?
Sure. I would like to start off by saying that I completely agree with you. I am also at an 8 out of 10 for this movie. I would like to just start by saying that I thought Michael B. Jordan, Jonathan Majors, and Tessa Thompson, non-surprisingly, of course, but they were all just fantastic, and they are all just such big name actors out there right now, and this movie proves why. Felicia Richard, I thought she actually had the best acted uh, moment in the movie, in the scene where she dies and she says her final, lines of Apollo, why did you leave me? And when she was mistaking Adonis for Apollo, I thought that was the best acted scene in the film, and that she was just breathtakingly good in that moment. I thought it was awesome to be able to see Ricky Conlon and Victor Drago again and have the movie pay homage to the previous two Creed films and the villains that the Adonis Creed character had in those. Now to my issues, though, and the reason that I have it at an 8 out of 10 instead of a 9 or 10 out of 10. First of all, the training montage and the final fight were both anticlimactic to me. I
Really? I
get
loved the final fight.
maybe they're trying to do something, different than the other Rocky and Creed films, but there is kind of a standard that I've come to expect with these movies, and this one just didn't meet it for me. And my other big issue wasn't that Rocky wasn't in the movie, but it was that they never addressed what the heck happened to him. I mean, is he away in Philly? Did he pass away? Like, Rocky's just not gonna abandon Adonis. That's not what he'll do. So I actually think it's a pretty catastrophic mistake that they made. I mean, I get that like maybe they're trying to not bring Rocky up too much and have people miss him, and now this is Adonis's story, but for them to not even say what happened to him, I thought was incredibly flawed on the movie's part. So I thought that they had some great things going with, the relationship between Adonis and Bianca, the relationship between Adonis and his daughter, the whole um, Felicia Richard storyline was great, and obviously the Michael B. Jordan, Jonathan Majors, and their two characters, that was the heart of the film, and their backstory, and all of that was fantastic. But I just thought kind of an anticlimactic final quarter of the movie, and not even addressing what happened to Rocky. That's why I have it at an 8 out of 10 and not a 9 or 10 out of 10.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think they mentioned Rocky once in the movie. Once?
Right. Like, but
Yeah.
yeah, and that's awesome, but like they didn't reveal like
Yeah, yeah, I
what happens
totally
to
I
him,
get what
and
you're
that's
saying.
my issue.
Mike, let's hear your general consensus of Creed 3.
Yeah, thank you, Cam. So first and foremost, I'm just coming off seeing it. Will and I went to a 11:55 a.m. Matinee performance, Cinemark Theater here in Napa, California. So we're just I don't know, just a couple hours after the end of the movie. So originally I was telling Will when we were coming out of the theater, I'm still digesting, right? Still digesting. But now that I've had some space and time to reflect, and I'd like to also put it under the category, though, of instant reactions, because we know that films can age and change over
Oh
time
yeah.
with repeated viewings. Um, the first 2/3 of this film for me were in a very high category. I was engaged. I loved the relationship between the two protagonists. I loved the relationship within Adonis and his family system, and the use of ASL, American Sign Language, and really embedding that seamlessly within the story. Felicia Richard was fantastic. The deathbed scene with her and Adonis was deeply moving. I love the backstory around Adonis. And I'm not even touching on the Rocky part just yet. I did find the last third of the film, which went very quickly into the extended fight sequence, training sequences, and montages between the two main characters, ultimately concluding in the fight, very overall unsatisfying. It seemed to the movie built to a place and then it just hovered there. It didn't go to the next level. I really didn't find any dramatic tension in the final fight. I thought it was visually interesting, the choices Michael B. Jordan made as a director, but I thought that the script left something to be desired in that last third where I wasn't emotionally involved in the fight. I knew where it was going. It felt, I don't want to say predictable to me. And let's be honest, it's hard to find a new way to do the fight scenes. And yet, in every other Rocky film, even ones that for me are flawed in substantial ways, like Rocky IV, I was still into the final fight. I'm not going to talk about Rocky V because there's a lot of train wreckness in the end of that one, but I might have even been into that fight more than I was particularly into this one. So I find the first 2/3 high level, but the last third was so empty to me that right now, if I were to rank the Rocky Creed films, and I'm just saying this is instant reaction, it might be second to last.
Oh my goodness.
It maybe. There are parts of Rocky IV that I think is so almost like painfully bad, and then there are parts that I still love. But right now, it might be above. It's definitely the third of the Creeds for me, easily. And that's not to say that Michael B. Jordan didn't do a solid job as a director. I actually think it's a script problem over the end.
And Ryan
Um,
Coogler and Kenan Coogler, right? They
it
were.
was his brother. It was his brother who wrote the script.
Oh,
Coogler
okay.
Ryan had part of the story idea, but I think it was his brother who was one of the main
Now, what
screenwriters.
else did his brother do? Did he have any other credits before?
Great
This?
question. That's a great question. We might be able to put that out
Oh,
for
I'll
your
check. Let's see.
Everything Podcast audience, and maybe they can look into it, or some of the people behind the scenes of the production of the show. And I'll wait. I am going to wait. I have lots to say about Rocky Balboa and how that character relates to this film, or doesn't relate to this film.
Yeah, I'm looking at Keenan Cooler's IMDb right now, and it looks like they decided to take the writer from Space Jam: A New Legacy, and make him write the third installment to the Creed franchise. Oh,
Well,
uh,
there you go.
that I understand now. Might not have been the smartest decision, but do you think that was Ryan Coogler being nice to his brother? Maybe, or did he?
I'll let Will take that one first.
Uh, Possibly you could make an argument for that, but like I mean even if we thought that the script had some issues towards the end, which I absolutely uh you know uh think it did, I still thought there were great parts to this story, so it was good enough for me that I won't go that far as to say that Ryan Coogler was just being nice to his brother. But Mike, what do you think?
I don't know
Oh,
enough about his brother, but and I thought, like I said, the first 2/3 I thought were well done, and I actually enjoyed the script. But the payoff is probably the hardest thing to do in a lot of movies, and I thought that's where it's dropped off. I'm not. And what's his brother's first name again?
Keenan.
Keenan. I'm not saying anything about Keenan. I didn't see that other Space Jam movie. He might have a promising career in film, but does it look like what we call nepotism? You could say that. So nepotism is giving family members, opportunities just because they're a family member. So I don't have hard feelings on that part, one way or the other. I just thought the script fell off the cliff in the end.
The only movies Keenan Coogler has really worked on, aside from a short film called Rachel in New York, have been Ryan Coogler movies. Creed, he worked on Creed, he worked on Black Panther, and he also worked on Fruitville Station, which was one of Ryan Coogler's earlier movies from 2013 with Michael B. Jordan. So yeah, it seems like all his work has been with Ryan
Well,
Coogler.
let's not forget that Sylvester Stallone often included his brother Frank Stallone in the musical soundtrack of many of his films, or in small parts as well. So there is a history of this brotherhood surfacing within the Rocky Creed franchise.
But Sylvester Stallone also didn't let his brother write an entire movie. That an entire movie, a sequel to an amazing franchise, might not have been the smartest decision. But I still enjoyed the movie. I I didn't see as many of the problems as you guys are talking about here. I still really enjoyed this. I think I think my ranking of the Creed movies are very different than yours, because I have Creed 2 at number 1. I don't know if you guys do. And then
I
I
do as well.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I'm with you on that. I go 2-1-3.
All right. See, I go 2-3-1 now after seeing this. It could change, but I don't see this one changing. I think I'm going to keep my opinion at this. I'm going to keep it at 8 out of 10, and I'm going to, because I over Thanksgiving, I rewatched Creed 1, and I didn't love it. It wasn't as good as I remember it being.
Oh,
Uh,
I have it far superior, for
really.
me, far superior. And coming out of the theater, I think I had this viewing of Creed 3 higher. Don't get me wrong. There are so many aspects that I thought were well done, but I left so empty with the ending. I'm now tipping towards a 6.
Oh, wow.
But
Uh,
I would give it close to a 9 for the first 2/3.
okay. Alright, so did you have a problem with what they did with the final fight scene? Because I've heard Michael B. Jordan talk about, he is an anime fan. Apparently, he took a lot of inspiration from anime fight scenes. So that probably had a lot of influence on how he shot the fight scenes and how he did those interesting things with the final fight scene with eliminating the entire crowd. I also think that could have happened because they filmed during COVID and they couldn't get a lot of people to film the audience reactions or something. They couldn't get that many people together, so they had to think of another way to make it still a really cool fight. That's also a theory that I have. But I thought it was really creative. I thought it was a really good way to change up the franchise because we've had nothing like it. And of course, all the fight scenes in Rocky are usually good and usually improving every movie except for Rocky Five. But Creed 2 has some exceptional fight scenes, I think. But this just levels it up. Michael B. Jordan does such really interesting things with the camera. The way he moves it, the way he shows the skin getting punched, it's really cool. It's really creative, and you can definitely see the influence there. It, I, when you can tell a director is making it their own movie, that's an accomplishment itself. I mean, I am happy that he is not just making a movie to he's not just directing a movie to direct a movie. He's adding his own personal style. He's adding his own flair, and I really like what he did. You guys might not, other people might not, but I did, and I really respect him for doing that, and I think he did a good job on it.
I'll let Will take his first reactions on the fight scenes and the direction.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that Michael B. Jordan did do a very creative job shaking it up, really making you be able to see the punches, feel them more than you had in any other film. Just the final fight just felt kind of quicker to me than other final fights and just didn't
It
have
was
that
quick,
like
I feel
big
like,
like
yes.
it didn't have that like just that big speech or that big moment that the other ones had. So that's just what brought it down for uh, me. And also, I didn't love the training montage, so I wasn't necessarily hyped going into it either, unlike other Rocky and Creed films.
I wasn't crazy happy with the training montage. I thought it served its purpose. I thought it was a pretty standard Rocky training. I did like it when he was pulling the plane, though. That was really cool.
Uh,
Yeah.
so I totally can see the points you have about how things were directed by Michael B. Jordan in the fight scenes. Absolutely, Cam. And I've read similar things about his love of anime and how he brought that in. And even I was mentioning to Will, I thought it was, intriguing, that the whole part where the audience is removed and it's really kind of a metaphor that it's two men in the ring. It's about them and their pasts and their histories. But here's a little bit of what happened for me as a viewer when that happened. It took me out of the movie, meaning
Okay.
sometimes when you're engrossed, you don't even know you're watching a movie anymore. But when that happened, it made me flip to go, oh, I'm watching a movie. Here's a director stylistic choice. And instead of it being seamlessly heightening some emotional response for me or dramatic tension, I saw Michael B. Jordan's direction there, right? And so it kind of pulled me away somewhat. But I think that Michael B. Jordan put his heart and soul into this movie
Oh,
on
totally.
so many different
And you
levels.
can tell from the interviews how passionate
Yeah.
he is.
And I actually think he did a excellent job overall as a director. And there was one review that I read that's kind of touched on some of what I'm saying, that they thought that the problems were more with the script. Although, like I said, I thought the first two-thirds of the film, the script were well. I thought over the second half of the movie, they started speeding things up. Where in the beginning, they were really spending a lot of time on backstories and relationships. And I actually think the film could have been a little longer. I know that's not kind of what's done. And sometimes the later Rockies, they kind of speed it up because it's become more about the action and the fights. But I thought some of the dramatic elements moved so quickly that the last third of the film was one long montage and a fight, and then it's kind of over. And I didn't have, the big moment that was building me towards something in any of the training sequences or the final fight. But that's not to say there weren't unique things done on a cinematography level and on a visual level and on a directing level. Michael B. Jordan was bringing it all in with craft and skill.
Totally. Yeah, and I just feel like I'm glad it may have had flaws, and it would have been I loved what he did. I loved the removing the crowd thing, and I get what you're saying, Mike, when he says it kind of removed you from the experience. I think I think he could have he did that, and I was fine with it. But what I'm trying to say here is he in the first fight when it show during the flashback he doesn't use that. He just uses his creative camera work to show it off, and just give it his own personal flair. That was enough for me. That's all I needed. And if he had just stuck with that during the fight, it would have. I think I would have enjoyed the final fight more if he extended it a little bit. I would have enjoyed it more. Um, but that being said, it didn't suck me away from the movie experience or anything like that. I still really enjoyed it. But to a point, I kind of agree with what you're saying. Um, but now I want to touch on one other thing that is actually kind of interesting. The flashback scenes. I I wasn't expecting them to take up as much time in the movie as they did. I was expecting there to be a flashback scene in the opening scene, like a 5 minute, just showing us who these characters were. No, it was like a whole other subplot, just diving into. They went deep into these characters' pasts, and I love that. Will, let's hear. I want to hear your thoughts on the flashback scenes.
Yeah, I thought they were fantastic and pivotal to the movie. And look, I think the whole Adonis Creed, Damian Anderson storyline was fantastic and what carried so much of this film. And obviously, getting their backstory is pivotal. So yeah, I thought those flashback scenes were fantastic and absolutely pivotal to the movie.
Mike,
Yeah, I was compelling. I thought the backstory scenes, and you entered into a whole other world, and it set the stage for so much of then what happened when things got into present day. So it was one of actually I thought that was a place where I want to tip my hat to the screenwriting. I actually thought the story and the screenwriting there were very, very solid, and I was there and I was into it, and I found it intriguing, and it added a lot of depth and layers to things that happened throughout the first two-thirds of the film for sure.
yeah. So overall, I think we all like those flashback scenes, and I think it's really cool how we get to see that Damien isn't a bad person. He just made some mistakes. He tried to help Adonis. He was good to Adonis, and Adonis liked him. He may not have made like good decisions at all, but at the end of the day, he was Adonis's brother. Adonis says that, and I feel like it makes it even more makes it harder to watch them fight at the end of the movie because you know they used to be such close friends. They used to be brothers. So I'm glad it really fleshes out that they used to be good friends. So it gives the final fight even more weight.
I'm raising my hand. Do you see my
Oh
mechanical
yes,
hand
yes,
raised?
I see your
I'm going to lower it now so it doesn't visually distract from what's happening, but I have something to say.
okay.
I alluded to it in the beginning of my review of this film, and I said I'd touch on it later. Will touched on it, and you touched on it both when you were discussing this film, but I want to bring it back because I think it's so epic. I'm not going to get past it. Where the hell was Rocky Balboa?
I
Now
know.
we understand about Sylvester Stallone, right, and his thing with Ern Winkler, the producer, and that they're not seeing eye to eye on any way, shape, or form. And Sylvester Stallone has called him out in many ways. I've also read, as I'm sure both you two have, as a great podcast journalists, that Sylvester Stallone had a whole other idea for this film, and that Adonis was going to fight Clubber Lang's son, right, and had a whole idea and vision for that. I get the creative differences. I get Sylvester Stallone not being in the film, but you can't not mention him.
Yeah.
Rocky Balboa was a father figure to Adonis. Very clear. The central model in his life outside of his mom in terms of an elder. Obviously, the ghost of his father creates a big shadow over his life and a relationship that he has to come to terms with. But where was Rocky? Why is he not turning to Rocky? And if he's not turning to him, what happened to their relationship? That it's not mentioned makes the film incomprehensible to me. I almost don't understand it. I don't actually now, as a viewer, believe anything that I saw on some level because Adonis is not referencing Rocky. His wife isn't referencing Rocky. She had intimate times with them. Apollo's wife isn't mentioning Rocky. It doesn't make any sense. Now, you could say, oh, they're rebooting the franchise, they're taking it in another direction. That's all well and fine, but we're still watching a story and we're following characters' lives, and we have invested and believe in those lives. And now they're taking Rocky out and they don't even mention him. And when he is mentioned, they're not even making a direct reference because believe me, I was paying attention.
Oh
All
yeah.
Adonis once says is, oh, when Apollo fought Rocky so and so. That's it.
There was even a scene in the trailer that they took out where he mentions Rocky, I believe.
Um, Well, don't get me started on trailers and
Oh.
false advertising. All right. It all goes back to Thor Love and Thunder. When they're showing scenes in a trailer that aren't even in the movie.
They did that in Avengers Infinity War
I
too, but you guys weren't Marvel fans when those came out.
can't stand it. It's like film lying to me. But so I didn't know that about this one. I didn't pick up on it because I'll often not watch the trailers because they give away too much for me.
That
But the
makes
fact that
sense.
Rocky isn't in
By the
this,
way, Mike, just to let you know, the line that Adonis says in the trailer is Apollo, or he says, Rocky, my dad, this was built on their shoulders. He says that it was built on Rocky and Apollo's shoulders in the trailer, but that line did not make the film.
well, my rating for this might even start dipping. What did I give it? A 6?
Yeah.
This part I think is huge. I think it is huge. It makes absolutely no sense on a logic level and then on a heart level. The first two stories, you could not separate Adonis from Rocky and Rocky from Adonis. It was all about their relationship and about the mentorship and everything that happened, and both characters trying to heal past wounds and how their lives intersected in so many different ways. And to remove the Rocky character without explaining anything about it, that's epic. That's epic to me and an epic failure. And it makes me not believe in the story as much. And then it just becomes an exercise in filmmaking more than something where I'm building upon the prior films to lead me into this film in a narrative that's consistent and is in its right heart place. The heart place is missing here. You can't remove Rocky without having a way to encapsulate that. Huge mistake. I'm now down at a 4.
Okay, so now, Will, you actually had some things you wanted to say about Rocky not being in this movie. Let's hear
All
it.
right, so I at the start of the podcast, I said that my issue wasn't that he wasn't in the movie. It's that it was not addressed where the hell he was. I cannot believe I didn't get to this point until now. But Mike, listening to you, because Mike, I consider you a Rocky and Creed expert. You've seen these films many times over the course of decades. You've seen practically all of them in the theaters, and just as you just described and broke down what you just said about it not being addressed where the hell Rocky was in this film, I would like to turn on the hot take alert, everybody. Listen to what I'm about to say. I believe that Creed 3 may have committed one of the worst sins in the history of cinema. I said it.
Wow.
One of the worst mistakes in movie history. Mike, as you were breaking that down, I was just really thinking, it does not make sense why it would not even be mentioned where Rocky was in this film. It takes away everything that Creed 1 and Creed 2 built up. Mike, you said it. It was a father-son relationship between Rocky and Adonis. Rocky was a mentor to Adonis. They had an incredible relationship. And for that to just, for them to not even say, oh, Rocky's dead, or for them to not even say, oh, Rocky's in Philly, or oh, Rocky's ill, so he can't come and help Adonis train. For you to do that to the guy who started this franchise in the first place, I am legitimately considering dropping my grade exponentially after listening, Mike, to the way that you described the sin that this movie committed. Like I am really actually ticked off right now. Final time, I got a bold take. Creed 3 just committed one of the biggest mistakes in the history of movies. I said it and I stand on it.
Okay. I respect that. I disagree, but I respect it. I personally think if Rocky had been dead, this play takes place 7 years after Creed 2, I believe. So I think it actually makes sense them not mentioning Rocky is dead if he is. But if he is alive in this universe and he just shows up in the next
But
movie,
wouldn't Adrian be grieving the death of his mentor? How can I go through this without Rocky?
that's
I,
true. But the
what
thing
they did
is,
is
it
they
takes
just they
place
didn't
7 years
even.
after, and he's done fights after Creed 2,
And
so
where
he
was
must have
he?
learned how to overcome it.
I know, but we have to guess. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
They're,
that's
they're
true.
not they're not telling you anything. So we're like coming up with these crazy ideas. This movie would have been a masterpiece if in the last third Rocky Balboa emerged, right?
But
Say Rocky was in an assistant, whatever his situation, even if he's just talking to him on the phone to give him the thing that he needs. The fact that they actually what they did is essentially wrote the character out of the story. That's
yeah,
unforgivable.
it is. And the uh, not unforgivable, but it's disappointing because without him there is no Creed. There is no Creed 3. There is no Adonis.
I don't blame Michael B. Jordan, but
No.
as as
He was
a
dealt
as
a
a
really
film,
bad hand. It's
as a
not
film,
his fault.
I do say it's unforgivable. I do believe that. Well, but I don't hold it against Michael B. Jordan personally, but just within the arc of the whole. That's why the rating. But remember, this is all initial impressions. I'm not even 24 hours into seeing the film.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it the second time. I do want to put an asterisk need to back beside myself when people say I'm a Rocky Creed franchise expert. There is an asterisk there. I've only seen Rocky 5 once.
Oh, all right. That's
I
fine.
have to say, but I think I actually need to see it again to see if I rank it higher than Creed 3.
I would be I would be disgusted if you did. But
I can understand that. Like I said, the first 2/3 of Creed 3 were excellent, but the more I think about this cardinal sin almost of just erasing the most iconic character, maybe in the history of cinema. It's hard to find someone in American cinema more iconic than Rocky Balboa.
If I
And
had to think of my favorite character in the history of movies, there is no character I enjoy more than Rocky Balboa.
I understand. I understand what you're saying, and I just don't think it's as big of a deal as you guys are saying it is. Because this movie stood on its own. Michael B.
I can
Jordan
respect that.
showed
I
some
can respect
serious
that.
skill.
I can respect where you're coming from. My heart's so connected, though. Well, I do believe my heart's connected to their relationship as those two characters. And I do believe it's such a flaw in narrative writing. That being said, there were so many good things that were happening in this movie. I thought the performances were a lot of them were fantastic. And I'll leave my ranting and raving on that topic at rest here, but I don't think I'm going to get over it.
All right, so kind of transitioning off the acting point you just made, Jonathan Majors, just coming off Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and now going into Creed 3, two really great performances. This one I think is much better than Kang and Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. I see your emoji there, Mike. What an amazing performance by Jonathan Majors. He starts off the film, we feel bad for him. He was locked up for years, and we're happy that Adonis is trying to give him some help, trying to help him out, he's trying to be a good friend. But then he puts a hit out on Victor Drago. And then it changes everything. This guy you thought was in prison for a crime he felt remorse for, a crime he served his sentence for. He's back. He stayed in shape. He stayed in shape, and he's ready to fight. He just wants to train, but no, he doesn't want to take it slow. He wants to do it now. So he puts a hit out on the title contender Victor Drago, and then he orchestrated it all to get his fight. It's it's crazy. My opinion on him just did a complete 360, and it was just shocking. And when you see him in a room, well, he's huge. He's terrifying. And when he punches Creed in the face, I think that whole scene is just amazing. Cuz you see how much Creed grows as a character even in this one movie. Cuz you see him just this guy Leon, you see him just punch him in the face right when he sees him. If this were still that same Creed, he would have gotten himself badly injured. He would have got himself badly injured by Damien. But no, he's grown. He's matured. He didn't. He walked away. He wasn't running away. He wasn't scared. He was being the bigger man. He was being the stronger man, and he was walking away. He was being smarter, and it paid off at the end because he beat him. And it also demonstrated just how scary Jonathan Majors is, and wow, that guy's in great shape. He is huge. Um, so yeah, really, really happy with Jonathan Majors' performance. Will, let's hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, the guy's just fantastic. He's one of the biggest actors out there right now, and I was thinking earlier today, I was like, oh, maybe I should sit down at some time and watch his movie Devotion from last year, just to kind of complete the three big movies that Jonathan Majors has been in recently, just because I'm so impressed with him as an actor. But look, the guy's just fantastic, such a presence on screen, one of the biggest actors out there right now, and so great, that he got a chance to play a character that was complicated. And it's so great when you have a villain who you obviously are cheering against, but that you also feel bad for, and it can be complicated at times. And I thought that this movie did a great job with that, and Jonathan Majors just did an exceptional job in the role.
Yeah, totally. Mike, thoughts on Jonathan Majors?
Well, I think you both have summed up so much about, his performance in this film, and it was one of the true treats, right? To watch him and to watch Jonathan Majors and Michael B. Jordan interact in their chemistry. It was palpable. And, it did partially the storyline also made that final fight kind of complicated, though, right? Because the Jonathan Majors character does do jail time based off, trying to help Michael B. Jordan's character when they were kids, right? And I'm not in any way defending the choices that his character made throughout the film.
Oh yeah,
But
totally.
it was complicated. I mean, you wanted Adonis to win the fight, but it was still a complicated piece. Obviously, this has been an explosive, like whatever 2-year period for Jonathan Majors as an actor, and he's knocking it out of the park in all of the performances that he's been in. And then I don't want to just say, though, that Jonathan Majors was in peak physical condition, because Michael B. Jordan also in peak physical condition. And in some ways,
Well,
I think
he
Michael B.
kind of
Jordan,
always is.
I think he has to but transform his body type more, because I think
Yeah,
Jonathan
he needs to
Majors
look like a
is
boxer.
larger. And then, in honor of them both, I almost was going to appear on this podcast without my shirt on, because
Oh,
I
that
too
might.
happen to have a physique that matches kind of what you've seen from them in the film, but I didn't want to detract from the audience.
Oh yeah, that might take their focus away from the very important things we have to say on this show. So
I do want to say
I'm
that I
glad you
did.
didn't do that.
Did you notice that I did change my visual background here, or my visual
I did.
filter cam, because I wanted to acknowledge this is my way. So first I had the movies, because I've seen almost all of these films in the theater. However, Rocky 1, because it came out and I was like 8. And I didn't see it in the theater. My family wasn't big into Rocky. So the first film I actually saw on television, and this is
Okay.
my way of acknowledging and paying respect, that my introduction to the Rocky series was on TV, but I'll never forget seeing Rocky 2 in the theater and how pumped I was.
Yeah, that
And
must
you
have been
didn't
an
see
awesome
Creed 1 or
experience.
Creed 2 in the theater, I don't think. Did you, Mike?
I did not see those in the theater, and I still regret it to this day, but I will not regret it as much as I'm sure the people involved in Creed 3 regret leaving Rocky out of the film.
I was able to see Creed 2 in theater, but not Creed 1. But I actually think we've covered all the points we need to cover today. Yeah, thank you guys for joining me on this episode of the Everything Podcast. Will, it's always awesome to have you. Mike, thanks for joining us.
It
Yeah.
was a pleasure, Cam. Fozzie, thanks so much. Thanks, Will. I really respect everything that you guys are doing on this series. So creative. You're covering not just the long form, but short forms. You had your series where you're bringing in musicians. There's so much happening here, appropriately titled the Everything Podcast, and it's just an honor anytime I have an opportunity to join you.
Well,
Always
thank
great to
you.
have you, Mike. And really quick, I can put where I rank Creed
Oh, yes.
3. So I'll just do this quick, but I think everybody in their life has at least one movie that they may just love as a kid and think it's amazing, but as they grow older, they realize its flaws, but they just loved it so much when they were young that that love will always be there and never go away. That's my experience with Rocky 4, and that's why I have to have two separate lists. One where I rank the Rocky movies from which one I think is the best to which one I think is the worst, and then a different list where I have which a list that goes from my movie that I think is, or from my movie that's my favorite to my least favorite. So in these two lists, on the list that is the Rocky and Creed movies ranked from my favorite to least favorite, and I would like to say I do include the Rocky 4 director's cut in this, called Rocky 4 Rocky versus Drago the Ultimate director's cut. I'm one of the only people who would do this, but I'm going to do it. On the list where I rank the Rocky and Creed movies from my favorite to least favorite, I go 1, Rocky 4, 2, Rocky 2, 3, and I know me and Mike are the only people who love Rocky Balboa, but I have that at 3, Creed 2 at 4, Rocky 3 at 5, Rocky 1 at 6, Creed 1 at 7, Creed 3 at 8, the Rocky 4 director's cut at 9, and Rocky 5 at 10. And then for where I have the Rocky and Creed movies ranked from best to worst, and again, I know that my Rocky Balboa opinion and Mike, yours as well, is gonna get a lot of anger and hatred from a lot of people, but I don't care, and I'm just gonna say my opinion anyway. For the Rocky and Creed movies, from which one I think is the best to which one I think is the worst in terms of quality, here I have Rocky.
And so I didn't see him as that inspirational figure, and yet they make him make the inspirational speech, which was flat for me before the last round of this fight. Again, this is screenwriting. These are problems and flaws in the script.
All right. So, I think that wraps up the podcast. Do you guys have anything else you guys need to add?
I just want to say that the Everything Podcast is an elite entertainment, information, debate show, top quality. Just thanks for having me even on for just a little bit.
Thank you. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.